hello, people. If there's any people watching, it's hard to tell. Nowadays, I don't know what's going on. Are you robots? This is the first show of the year. Last week I did kind of like a 2023 year in review thing a little bit. It's nothing, I was just talking, it's just I don't know. And some people would expect the first show of the year to be a 2024 what do we think is going to happen? And to answer that, I don't know. I have no idea. But like I said last week, I consider us to be in a new era of human history, which I like to call the Age of Pestilence. And I'm going to be going into that a little bit. Of course, over the course of holidays, you see a lot of selfish, stupid, uneducated, moronic Neanderthal Americans and people around the world going on vacations during an airborne pandemic, going to parties during an airborne pandemic, and just doing a bunch of really stupid fucking garbage. Because Americans, again, and people in general, but Americans especially, that's my field of expertise, are the American idiots of the world. And they're just so fucking stupid. I get a lot of pushback. Some people say, you should criticize the government and not your fellow people. And it's like, the government's not watching my show, okay? Oh, maybe they are, I don't know. But again, if you're someone who's going to Christmas dinner during an airborne pandemic, especially if kids are present, God forbid you bring the kids. You're just dumb. You're just not just that you're dumb, but you're also just a bad person. Some people may say it's like, I'm too moralizing, it's moral grandstanding. But again, there's a difference between, being forced to live with people that are really fucking stupid and don't believe in germs, and then you just have to deal with that scenario, and my heart goes out to you. But it's a whole nother thing if you're someone who's flying in planes during the peak transmissible season of the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I would like to also say we are in the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the worst that it's been ever. And I will explain that throughout the course of the show. I'm going to be covering a couple of new studies that have talked about how when you get infected with COVID, it's there forever, seemingly. Regardless of how long ago you had your initial infection, regardless of even if you never have been infected, to your knowledge, because, of course, the virus is a very asymptomatic virus. At least certain mutations are very asymptomatic. So it'll attack you without your body responding, and you won't know you've ever been infected, and you've just got COVID living in your heart valves, right? So we are currently at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, 5 years in, and the world is in a mass denial state of affairs. People are too busy with their social media routines and lying to other people about how great their lives are on the internet in order to actually do something. And it's sad. It's depressing. Like I said, this is the first era of human history where the germ theory of disease has been discovered and also has been rejected by most people on the world. That most people that are living today, not even just a majority, 51%, not even just a super majority, 67%, but most people, I would argue 80 to 90% if you look at vaccine uptake. That's a good way to look at this thing. Most people that are walking around do not believe in the germ theory of disease. A staple of science as much as gravity, as much as the earth being a sphere. A lot of people love to make fun of flat earthers. But 80 to 90% of Americans are flat earthers when it comes to the germ theory of disease. And of course, I will not be shutting the fuck up about this, because this is the defining crisis of our generation. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is the defining crisis of this generation and the generations that are going to be coming after us. The kids that are born with COVID-induced developmental abnormalities, like I covered last week. It's depressing. A lot of people accuse me of being too depressed, too negative. But I think the opposite. I think y'all are too positive. You know, I don't see a light at the end of this tunnel. And the only reason I'm doing this show is because it makes me feel better. I mean, there's other reasons. Like, I like educating people whenever possible. And I like entertaining people, I guess, is like a distant third. But for the most part, this is like something I do just to dump my negativity onto the world so that I don't have to be this angry all the time. You know, I just release the pressure valve and then, go about my day until it builds up again for next week. But going into 2024, we also have this election that people are talking about. And I'm going to be going into that as well throughout this show. So, in fact, I have a video I wanted to watch that I'm going to pull up in that regard. I forgot to open it up previously. The 2024 election, I'm going to be honest with you. In 2020, I was 1,000% convinced that Trump would lose. I saw zero opportunities for Trump to win in 2020. And I'm a pessimistic person. You know me, right? At this point, if you're watching the show, you know I am a negative Nancy. You know I am a fucking doomer. I am a pessimist. I think the worst of everything. But in 2020, I thought that it was impossible for Trump to win the election. I was convinced. I was sure of it. If you go back and watch my election stream from 2020, everyone was panicking because of the red wave mirage bullshit, because Trumpers don't believe in early voting, right? So everyone was freaking out, and I was like, no way, man. Like, Biden is going to win, obviously. Duh. I mean, it was close. I'll grant you that. It was pretty fucking, it was pretty close. But I was still very convinced that Biden would win in 2020. Well, I was also, at this time in 2020, I was convinced Bernie would beat Trump. But he can't win them all. But this year, wow. Not going to lie, I'm fucked in the head when it comes to this election. Now, I'm someone that typically says presidential elections aren't the end-all, be-all. But again, this one is pretty fucking bad. Like, if Trump won in 2024, which is extremely likely, given the absolute state of Joe fucking Robinette Jr., I should say, Joseph Robinette Jr., the absolute state of this fucking this goblin-esque creature that we've got in the White House. Man, this is some scary ass motherfucking ass. I really don't know what else to tell you. So on the 2024 election, I don't know. I have no idea. So, some people like to do their predictions at the start of the year. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no prediction. I have no fucking idea. I keep up with the polling. I don't also really believe polling. I mean, like, polling, I think the margin of error for polling is like a lot of these polls will say margin of error plus or minus 2%. I don't think so. I think all polling as it's constituted in the United States has probably got a margin of error of like 10 to 15%. That's my opinion. What do I base that on? Look at the world around you. That's what I base it on. And so the polling is really bad for Joe Biden. but maybe he'll eke it out. I don't know. And then the other thing is that Donald Trump has his cultists that have like occupied a lot of seats of government in these states that are going to be doing their best to prevent people from voting in certain demographics. You know, it might be based on skin color. Hey, it could be, that all the heavily Republican secretaries of state just so happened to do the best that they can to not allow black people to vote. I mean, hey, I don't know why. No one could possibly know the answer to this question, but so there's a lot more Trump cultists in positions of power compared to 2020. It's not looking good. But it really is up in the air. It's really hard to say. Like, I have no prediction either way. 4 years ago, I was 1,000% convinced that Donald Trump would lose. I had no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump would lose. I remember even making a bet with someone for $2,000 on whether or not Trump would lose. And then, of course, Trump did the fucking, the stolen blah, blah, blah joke. And then the person never paid up. So if anyone out there knows a one Russell Meekum, developer of No Rest for the Living, the Doom episode, someone tell him, I'm still waiting for my $2,000. And I might be waiting for a while, but I'm still waiting for it. But either way, I don't know. I'm sorry. I love making fun of that guy. But there are so many reasons why this election in 2024 is a lot less convincing for me. And again, the main reason is that, again, we're having the same election 2 cycles in a row. Like, I mean, it's not the first time in human history where we've had the same election twice in a row. But it's like, Joe Biden is very clearly a terrible fucking president. If you ask, like, unless someone is on the Biden payroll, you're probably going to get like, yeah, this guy fucking sucks as an answer. And so that's the thing. Like, Biden, people didn't know who Biden was in 2020. And again, we knew who Biden was in 2020. That's why we were voting for Bernie Sanders and campaigning for Bernie Sanders, because we knew who Biden was. And what we're seeing now is why we were correct 5 years ago when we were making sure that it was anybody, making sure that Bernie could win in the primary. Obviously, that did not pan out. But still, like, we know that Biden is a terrible person. We knew that 5 years ago. We knew that 4 years ago. We knew that 3 years ago. We knew that 2 years ago, right? But again, you need to understand most Americans are ignorant and stupid. And they don't give a fuck about anyone, including themselves, including their kids, including their parents. No one, I wouldn't say no one, but I would say, like, at least look at the population of people that don't vote that are eligible to vote. They're just fucking stupid. They're just dumb. Like, I'm sorry. I know people have, like, their big brain, highfalutin fucking, like, that fucking picture, the meme picture with the fucking guy in the hot air balloon, but it's like his brain or something. I know people come up with these fascinating arguments why, like, voting for a third party in a swing state is actually morally based, or like not voting is like, if you don't vote, then you don't give the system legitimacy, man. And it's like, ultimately, these are some of the most heavily propagandized idiots in our country, the people that don't vote. But also, we need to also look at the voting population, because the voting population is also extremely ignorant and extremely stupid. And I know I get in trouble for saying this. People get offended when I shit talk our fellow Americans. But I mean, again, look at the world around you. These are some fucking stupid motherfuckers. These are some really, really, really stupid motherfuckers that are in this country. Some extremely dumb ass bitches. And this all goes to say that, again, no one really knew who Biden was in 2020, even though he was the vice president for 8 years. He was a senator for like fucking... But no one knew who he was because, again, Americans are ignorant and stupid. But now most Americans know who Biden is and they don't like him. So it really ultimately is a contest of who do you like the least. And obviously Donald Trump should be the candidate that you like the least. But in almost every poll I see in swing states, Donald Trump is winning against Joe Biden. This guy's got like 5,603 criminal charges. He's an Epstein associate, right? He has talked on television about how he has dreams of fucking his own children. And this guy is winning in swing states. Again, the only presidential elections that matter are swing states. At least in the general. In primaries, it's a different story, of course. And, I mean, again, we are fucked. Like, this is like hell on earth type situation here. And, again, I don't see a light at the end of this tunnel. Because the best case scenario is you get Joe Biden. Everyone goes to sleep again for another 3.5 years until the next presidential cycle, and we're just going to be repeating, right, all of this while everyone gets sicker and sicker and sicker and dumber and dumber and dumber. And, you know, I am 27 years old. You know, I'm thinking in, like, what is the world going to be like in 70 years, 80 years, 90 years? Like, when I'm 135, what are we going to be dealing with at that time period? And I'm then thinking to myself, I don't think any of us are going to make it to that time period because a look at the shit that's going on. And I'm not even talking about war that's happening. Like, we might not even make it to the 2024 election, right? But that I'm going to get into that in a second here with some news. But again, I am very, very scared. And again, we're in the age of pestilence where most people no longer believe in the equivalent of gravity or the spherical earth. Most people are flat earthers, conspiracy theorists, Joe Rogan superfans, Trump dick riders when it comes to the germ theory of disease. Even Joe Biden is a flat earther when it comes to the germ theory of disease. And really, if we can't have such basic solidarity, such as I'm not going to give you a life-altering, debilitating disease, and you're not going to give me a life-altering, debilitating disease. If we can't have such basic solidarity, you know, all these fucking online internet LARPers, like, we're going to revolt, to have revolution, union power. Like, yeah, the same unions that are doing strikes without masks, the same union leaders that don't believe COVID is real and they're flat earthers when it comes to the germ theory of disease, right, and getting all the workers sick. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to pay off big time in 10 years when all these workers are disabled and can no longer strike, can no longer do all this stuff. Right, I'm sure that the CEOs are going to be laughing their way all the way to the bank. Yeah, we gave them a good deal, and none of these deals are good that union leaders win. Like the automotive strike that was going on and the Rust Belt especially, like, they didn't get a good deal out of that. They got a better deal, obviously, than what they had before, but they did not in any case or way get a good deal. And they're all celebrating and cheering, yes, we got a win, we won, while they're getting COVID over and over and over again, which again disables you. If you get COVID a single time, you are now immunocompromised. And again, I've said this multiple times. I've read multiple scientific studies on this show. I've linked multiple scientific studies on this show. If you get COVID a single time, you have permanent immune system damage. And again, we're also in the pandemic of sugar-induced diseases, where 93% of Americans have some form of metabolic dysfunction because of sugar addiction. That's right. Look it up. 93% of Americans have a near fatal sugar addiction. If they continue eating sugar at the current pace, they will die 30 or 40 years before they would have otherwise. Why? Because of metabolic dysfunction. And again, COVID is easier to take hold in your body and to develop long COVID and to give you more symptomatic and debilitating symptoms when you do suffer from metabolic dysfunction. So if you're a sugar addict who hasn't eaten a salad in 13 years, COVID is more likely to fuck your shit up than it would if you're like a hardcore fiber addict, like myself. But of course, if you eat fiber, that's not a magic bullet. That doesn't protect you from COVID, so you shouldn't be getting COVID either way. And again, a lot of people go like, oh, why do you care so much about the flu? Again, if the flu killed hundreds of thousands of people every year and millions around the world every year and disabled 500 million people every 4 years, I would be that concerned about the flu. But either way, I'm also still concerned about the flu because when you think about it, we're in like year 106 of the 1918 Spanish influenza pandemic, because the same thing that's happening now happened back then. But back then, the germ theory of disease was not yet widely understood among common people. Now, again, it was out there. People understood the germ theory of disease in some capacity, but 106 years later, we have basically gone backwards when it comes to the germ theory of disease. And so the same thing that happened with the 1918 Kansas flu pandemic, we're in year 106. We're also in year 5 of the COVID-19 pandemic, and maybe we're going to get to year 100 of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fingers crossed if we make it that far. And I really don't know how to possibly give you a positive news feed whatsoever. It's just impossible. Sure, are there small groups of people that are doing some decent stuff? Absolutely. And that's cool and that's good. And again, in this show, I'm going to talk about a protest that happened that I am in fully endorsed of. And that's great, but it's also, we need to look at the macro picture here, and we are fucked. And again, just to be extremely clear so no one misinterprets me, not in the good dick way. Like, this is an extremely bad version of being fucked. I don't need to go into any more detail. But let's get into news here. I want to start off with this here. Let me just zoom in so the text is a little less tiny. So this is coming out of the Times of Israel, so you know that it's going to be entertaining in the least. Jewish radical anti-Israel protesters disrupt start of California legislative session. So what a headline. Jewish radical anti-Israel protesters disrupt start of California legislative session. Being against genocide makes you a radical anti-Israel protester. I mean, I know. We live in this fucking fancy world where genocide is the status quo. Killing people who have done nothing wrong is the status quo. And if you think killing innocent people is bad, you're a radical. You're crazy. You're a Looney Tune. So, let's read this article. Hundreds of U.S. protesters calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war interrupted the first day of California's legislative session on Wednesday, forcing the state assembly to adjourn just moments after convening. Lawmakers had just listened to the opening prayer. Can you believe opening prayer and Pledge of Allegiance? Like, I know, I'm going to say it, but 1984. What the fuck? Why do government fucking institutions have an opening prayer and Pledge of Allegiance? Like, I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance is a little bit more logical. I mean, it is a government body, but an opening prayer is unconstitutional. Not even that, it's anti-constitutional. It's literally illegal according to the Constitution. And they do it anyway because, whatever. When Jewish pro-Palestinian anti-Israel protesters wearing matching black t-shirts stood from their seats and started singing "Ceasefire Now" and "Let Gaza Live." Now, again, I covered this last week where 91% of Israelis in Israel support the genocide of Gazans. 91% of Israeli citizens, if you can even call them citizens, because Israel's not a country, it's a military base, so what do they have citizenship for? I don't know, but Israeli settlers, colonizers, whatever, 91% of them are okay with the genocide in Gaza. And that is insane kinds of numbers. I mean, if you look at polls from after 2001, you would see similar stuff in America, and it's equally insane. Well, maybe not even equally insane. It's probably more insane for the Israeli side of it. But I don't know, though. Then again, at least in America, we we went to war with completely different countries that didn't even attack us. Say what you want about Hamas and whether they're justified in their attack against Israel. Obviously, I don't support killing innocent civilians, but it's like, I can understand why they felt like they need to do something. At least Israel is going after, technically, the group that attacked them, technically. Now, again, they're murdering innocent civilians that had nothing to do with it no matter what, right? So, they're not actually attacking the targets. But it's like, America's got attacked by Saudi Arabia, and then we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. What? It's all fucking stupid. But again, these are insane motherfuckers. And again, in a world where most people don't give a fuck about COVID and mass disabling of people, mass disease, disability rates are skyrocketing in every country that tracks disability, so much so that the United Kingdom is redefining what disability is so that they can slash the numbers, and then they're going to go around and say, look, disability rates are falling, just to hide the COVID death toll. Right, so again, let's keep going with this article here, but my point here is that most people are fucking insane. I need you to really understand this. Most people are fucking insane, psychopathic, bloodthirsty, selfish freaks. That is most people, whether they be in America, Israel, the UK, Italy, whatever country. Most people are fucking insane, evil scumbags, right? I'm sorry, it's just the truth. It's just the truth. The average person is an insane, evil scumbag. Why? Because this country and the global capitalist hegemony indoctrinates you from a young age, through the school systems especially, to be an evil, disgusting, psychopathic, fucking insane person. And unless you do something about that, do independent education of yourself, unlearn the shit that you were taught in schools and by your parents, right? Unless you do something about that, by default, you are an insane, psychopathic, nasty-ass person. And that's just the way it is, right? I'm sorry if that offends you. If that offends you, look inward and think about the things that you're doing and how they affect other people. Now, again, let's get back to this. A few people unfurled banners from the Chambers Gallery that read, "Jews say never again for anyone." Doesn't that make sense when you think about it? Jewish people were almost completely exterminated less than 100 years ago. And now, the sole Jewish country is the one doing the next big genocide? Right? So wouldn't it make sense for Jewish people to say never again? Right? Isn't that a duh? Our ancestors almost got completely wiped off the fucking global map, and so we don't want that to happen again to anybody. And yet, also at the same time, the Jewish state is the one committing worse crimes than the Nazi government of Germany. What Israel is doing in Gaza is worse by gigantic margins at this point. It's debatable in October of last year. It's debatable what's worse, the Nazis or the Nazis in Germany or the Nazis in Israel. At this point, I don't think it's debatable anymore. The Nazis in Israel are worse than the Nazis of Germany. It's just a fact. Millions and millions of people being forced into prisons for more than a decade. In Gaza, Gaza is a prison, a slave colony, where they work for very little, and everything that they ever own, all the wealth that they possibly could accumulate, all very little of it is stolen from Israel by taxes and other such things, right? Taxes, basically, they just go in there and steal your cash, they steal your house, they steal all the shit that you own, or they control all the things that enter Gaza, right? So why are food prices so goddamn expensive? Why is medicine so goddamn expensive? A way to suck you and drain you dry of any possible wealth. That's a slave colony, all the while they have people, Israeli corporations that benefit from a lot of the labor that goes on in Gaza. It's a slave colony. That's really what it is ultimately, right? That's been going on for decades. And say what you want about Nazi Germany, really bad guys, but they did not get away with that shit as long as Israel has gotten away with this shit. So I don't know, man. It's pretty obvious to me why a Jewish person would see what the Nazis in Israel are doing and then go, wow, this is just like the Nazis in Germany. Because, again, Nazis are Nazis. It doesn't matter what religion they pretend to believe in, what God that they fucking are schizophrenically obsessed with. None of that fucking matters, because Nazis, at the end of the day, are Nazis. If you hate other people because of their skin color or religion or whatever fucking bullshit, you are a Nazi. I don't really give a fuck. I don't care, okay? Like, if you are a Jewish person, you have no right to claim that Muslims are, like, uniquely religiously savage or some shit. Like, all of these religions are fucking stupid, okay? I'm sorry. Like, if you're a Christian who hates a Muslim, you're a fucking dumbass. If you're a Muslim who hates a Jewish person, you're a fucking dumbass. If you're a fucking Jewish person who hates a Christian, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. All of these religions are fucking stupid. All the people that believe in this shit are fucking stupid to begin with. So the idea that you would hate other people for believing in a slightly different version of the same God is just fucking, it's ridiculous. At first, Jim Wood, a Democrat Assembly member from who was presiding over the session, tried to continue the session. None of that fucking shit matters. Nearly all the lawmakers left the floor. Protesters cheered when officials turned the lights off, holding up flashlights on their phones as they continued to sing, which include a lengthy call and response chant from the gallery. We are Jews and Californians, Assembly members. We call on you to join us in demanding a ceasefire now. So one thing I want to say about this protest is everything I've seen seems to indicate that these protesters are wearing masks. Who would have thought? Jewish anti-genocide protesters are wearing masks during an active genocidal campaign where the capitalist global hegemony is forcing people to get disabled with a virus that causes significant decrease in quality of life, setting them up for another useless eater type genocide, which was what was going on in Nazi Germany, which is what is going on in Nazi Israel, right? So yes, I agree with this protest. If you are protesting against genocide and you're not wearing a mask, I got news for you. You are simultaneously protesting against genocide and also actively engaging in a pro-genocide demonstration. Because at the end of the day, think about it. Does doing a little song and dance in the middle of fucking Fifth Avenue really cause the suffering of Gazans to let up at all? No. Not really. I mean, should you do it? Sure. But when you go to these protests without masks on and disable people and give people a deadly virus that can permanently alter your quality of life so that you can't go out and protest because you do not have the bodily ability to do so, that is engaging in a genocide. So again, there's a lot of these so-called anti-genocide protests that are actively promoting a genocide. But again, it's two different things. Like, it's not, even, it's a wash. They're in favor of this one and against this one. Because they're protesting against a genocide that they have no power over, so they don't affect the outcome, while enabling and actively encouraging a genocide of which they do have power and influence over, also known as spreading COVID to innocent people. So again, I just have to give a huge shout out to these groups for actually acknowledging the situation going on. We are going through the COVID genocide. 20 plus million people dead, gone forever. They're never coming back. Your parents, your cousins, your kids, your dogs, your family members, your friends, they are never coming back because somebody gave them COVID and they fucking died. We have 500 million people that are disabled in some capacity because of this virus and counting. And also, we don't even really know the true numbers because all these governments are covering this stuff up. So again, I just have to say, if you are doing any sort of anti-Israeli genocide of Gazans demonstration and you are not wearing a mask and you are not conscious of COVID's death toll, disability toll, you are, in every sense of the word, a very, very useful idiot. And the FBI and the CIA love you. They love you, and they're so happy they don't have to pay you to go to these demonstrations and disable all the demonstrators and activists so that in 2-3 years they can't do it anymore. They just can't do it anymore. Why? Because they got COVID at all these demonstrations because of stupid fuckers, and probably themselves who are not wearing masks as well. And now they can't do anything anymore. Whoopsie-doo. So again, I just have to say, it is extremely amazing to finally see an anti-genocide protest that is anti-genocide in every sense of the word. They are against genocide. And that is awesome. That is excellent. I want to read this section here, because this one is crazy. Wednesday's protest was organized by far-right and radical anti-Israel groups, including Jewish Voice for Peace. I just want, just this part, right? Organized by far-right and radical anti-Israel groups, including Jewish Voice for Peace. Yeah, Jewish Voice for Peace. Famous far-right radical group. Now, obviously this is fucking ludicrous, right? But why would the Times of Israel call a left-wing protest far-right? Because they know that right-wingers are the enemy for most people. So what they want to do is simultaneously promote right-wing politics while gaslighting you into believing that actual left-wing politics are right-wing and telling you that right-wing politics are bad. Because they recognize that more people have an aversion to right-wing politics than left-wing politics, so they're going to just lie and say every left-wing group is right-wing because they're against genocide. Yeah, that's the world we're living in. Being against genocide makes you a right-winger, according to the Times of Israel. All right. Okay. I mean, again, we're dealing with some really fucked up shit. Let me drink some seltzer here. I also want to talk about what's going on in Iran. And this is what is really horrifying me for the prospects of the calendar year of 2024. Confusion, this is from Al Jazeera, confusion, speculation in Iran after twin blasts kill more than 80 people. Iranians mark a day of mourning after bombings kill 84 people, leave more than 280 wounded. And again, the wounded number could always bleed into the deaths number. People get wounded and they die in the days after. So that could, that's how death tolls increase. Iranians have been marking a day of mourning after twin bombings in the city of Kerman killed and wounded many people. And get this, at a memorial for top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani 4 years since his assassination, raising tensions in the region. So Donald Trump assassinated an Iranian general. Somehow Iran was like, okay, we won't nuke you. We should, but we won't. And now Israel is bombing the memorial for that general. Now again, the idea of having a memorial for a fucking general, I mean, we can talk about how ridiculous that is as well. But again, I really need people to understand that this is some extremely dangerous stuff. And yes, I said Israel bombed the memorial. Why? Because that's what they do. That's what they fucking do. I believe it was in 2021 when IDF soldiers shot and killed several journalists in Gaza. And then at the funeral for one of the journalists, shot and killed more people at the funeral. They shot at the people holding and moving the casket. Think about this. I mean, and again, mourning a dead journalist is a lot more respectable than mourning some military guy, but hey, whatever. The IDF killed journalists and then tried to kill the people that were carrying the dead journalist's casket to be buried. I really need you to understand that these are Nazis. The government of Israel is a Nazi state. It is an unhinged terrorist organization. It is a neo-Nazi empire in training. That's what they are. They are imperialists. They are Nazis. They are warmongers. They are evil, okay? And again, 91% of Israelis in Israel support this neo-Nazi agenda. And again, shout outs to the 9% of Israelis that can correctly deduce that all of this shit is fucked up. But what do you do in a country, or I should say, what do you do in a world where we just have to deal with these Nazi empires trying to literally bring us into nuclear hellfire because God told them to, and now they're fucking rattling the cage of another stupid fucking government of Iran. Iran is a theocratic fucking shithead government where they worship a made-up book that some fucking doofus pedophile wrote like fucking 800 years ago or fucking some shit. Like, these people are, like, I'm sorry, but like, we are in the year 2024. If you're still falling for any one of these dumb shit for fucking brains religions, you're dumber than dog shit. Not to mention if you actually believe it so much that you're willing to kill other people on behalf of your made-up God. This is getting ridiculous, right? And I want people to really understand the people that have the nuclear codes believe in guardian angels. People that have nuclear launch codes and nuclear warheads believe in martyrism. People that have the nuclear fucking goddamn capacity to destroy our entire fucking world literally believe in a magical man in the sky that is telling them and guiding them through their lives. If that's not fucking horror fuel for you, then I want what you're on. Give me whatever drug cocktail that you are consuming on a daily basis, because that is fucking scary. I'm going to scroll down here for a little bit. There has been no claim of responsibility for what appeared to be the deadliest attack to target Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The blast struck minutes apart, shaking Kerman about 820 kilometers, 510 miles, southeast of the capital, Tehran. The second blast sent shrapnel into a screaming crowd fleeing the first explosion. Now, what you need to know about these bombs is these are not like, regular bombs. These are bombs that were intricately modified to inflict the maximum possible damage on human life. We're talking about these dirty ass fucking shrapnel ass bombs where essentially what happens is the bomb goes off and like nails are essentially being fucking flown through the sky and perforating people's insides and impaling them, right? These are bombs designed for maximum civilian death and despair. And again, what rabid Nazi empire is currently engaging in mass slaughter of civilians that we can think of? Israel, of course, right? So unless this is a very fucked up false flag attempt to get like Iran to attack Israel, I don't necessarily believe that. I think it's way more likely that it is Israel or some unit in Israel doing this kinds of stuff. And again, you can reread, you can read the rest of this. There's just some more details about like some other people's responses and all this shit. Who cares about the responses? I care about innocent people being murdered for no fucking reason because we have neo-Nazis roaming the Middle East for fucking God knows why, right? And this is not a sustainable situation. It's just not. This whole thing is fucked beyond belief. And I want to talk a little bit about another thing that's going on, I should say, internationally. And this goes back to the COVID conversation. Italian hospitals collapse. Over 1,100 patients waiting to be admitted in Rome. Now, if you remember the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course, by the way, is still going on despite what your government wants you to believe, Italy was hit very hard in the early days of the pandemic. and the Italian hospital systems all across the country, not every hospital in Italy, but a lot of the major areas, collapsed. Like, as in, doctors could no longer work, and, shifts were just empty a lot of the time, and the doctors and nurses that could work were getting sick and also getting, disabled and dying, right? And now we're just doing it again. Because all these governments want you to believe that the germ theory of disease isn't real. They want you to believe that the earth is flat. They want you to believe that gravity is not real. And so they're lying to you. They are lying to you. And then, lo and behold, the people that are getting lied to and actually believe the government propaganda are dying in droves and getting disabled in droves. But again, I'm not going to lie to you and say I really care at all about the conspiracy theorist morons that don't believe in germs getting sick and dying. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. I don't care when scumbags kick the bucket. I really don't. But the problem is, a lot of these evil, narcissistic psychopaths have victims along their trail of despair and bloodshed, right? They live with people that do believe in the germ theory of disease, and they put those people in harm's way. I have so many people that watch my show, and so many people whose reports I've read online of, their blogs and their videos, talking about how they live with either parents or siblings or roommates that don't believe in the germ theory of disease, and then they got sick and disabled even though they were wearing masks in their bedroom 24/7, and they still got it because at some point you need to switch your mask, right? At some point, if you're constantly exposed to COVID, an N95, what does 95 stand for? 95%. If you keep rolling the dice every day for 5 years, that 5% is going to kick in and you're going to get infected with COVID. And there are many people who are the victims of these scumbags. So I say this, the sooner these flat earther tier dummies kick the bucket, the better for everyone else involved. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. At the same time, again, think of the people that they fucking fell down the stairs and broke their leg. They go to the emergency room. Sorry, we can't do anything. Then they get sepsis and die because a bunch of fucking idiots got COVID because they thought the germs weren't real anymore. They just thought, oh, germs? I guess they're not real. All right. And now someone who has an actual medical emergency is being denied healthcare because of fucking idiots. Fucking idiots. And the governments also are the ones lying to people. Now, again, if you are so fucking stupid that you just go, well, the government told me it must be true. I'm sorry, man. Again, go fuck yourself. I don't give a shit about you, your life, anything you have to offer. You are garbage. If you think the government has your health and safety in mind, you are fucking too dumb to live in a Darwinian sense. Natural selection is selecting you for the pool that is not going to make it to the next, okay? Max, what the fuck are you doing? This dog. Max, why? Why? This dog, or tennis ball rolled under my chair, so now he's here. But again, these motherfuckers, they're just well, Joe Biden told me that germs stopped being real, so I guess it must be true. And again, whatever equivalent in Italy has a far-right government now as well. They got Nazis in there again. And so, it's just what are we doing? If you are so fucking comfortable in whatever life you're leading, that the idea of being skeptical of the government is a foreign concept to you, to the point where they lie to you about disease, and then you get sick and then die, or get sick and then give that sickness to your kids, your siblings, your cousins, your family members of any kind, your parents that are elderly. I mean, I'm sorry, man, but again, natural selection is actually doing something interesting here. And again, the only people I really give a fuck about are the victims. again, you can make an argument that they were lied to, man. They're the real victims. But I'm sorry, we live in the internet age. If you live in Italy and you don't know how to be skeptical of the government and use your fucking cell phone to look up facts and information, I'm sorry, but again, you're not a victim. You're just fucking stupid, and you're engaging on the genocide on behalf of the government. So I really don't believe that these people that are so fucking dumb that they don't trust that they do trust the government when it comes to their health and safety. I don't believe that they're victims. I'm sorry. Those are perpetuators. Those are also accomplices and criminals in the COVID genocide. But let's actually read this article because it's interesting here. The worst situation is in Rome and its region, where more than 1,100 patients are waiting to be admitted, according to the Italian Society of Emergency Medicine and Urgent Care. Just a few days ago, ambulances were queuing outside hospitals in Rome. In other regions, such as Lombardy, patients are crammed into waiting rooms until a bed becomes available. And I'm sure that, let's imagine you don't have COVID, you broke your leg or something, and you're crammed in a waiting room with a bunch of maskless fucking morons, then you're going to get what we love to refer to as hospital-acquired COVID, where you go to the hospital for help and you end up getting sicker. Right? Isn't this fucking insane? Think about it. What is the role of the healthcare industry? You feel unwell, you go there with the goal of feeling well again. And in most areas of the world now, you can go to the hospital and end up getting significantly sicker than you entered the hospital. Isn't this fucking insane? Aren't people just wondering, what the fuck are we doing here? In cities such as Turin, hospitals' overcrowding has even led to a shortage of stretchers for patients. Emergency departments in Italian hospitals are in chaos and on the verge of collapse. The worst situation is in Rome and its region, where more than 1,100 patients are waiting to be admitted, according to the Italian Society of Emergency Medicine and Urgent Care. Quote, "We are trying to guarantee the service, but we are in an extremely difficult situation." Now, again, this right-wing Nazi government that currently is occupying the Italian parliament, of course, they're cutting funding to the healthcare system. They're not going to actually respond by increasing funding in any way. At least I would be shocked if they did. And then, check this out. Because, of course, the media is also complicit in the COVID genocide. So check out this quote. "The rise in hospital admissions, which has put pressure on the Italian health system, is due to an increase in respiratory diseases, especially among the elderly." Quote, "COVID has slightly decreased in the last week. Flu is spreading, but other viruses have also caused overcrowding." So you expect me to believe the week after Christmas, one of the busiest travel seasons internationally, and you want me to believe COVID is decreasing? But of course it's not decreasing, it's heavily accelerating, but they're going to say something like it's slightly decreasing. What does that mean? Nothing. But also, we know, and they are hiding from you, that COVID destroys your immune system. So if you get COVID, you are more likely to get a severe respiratory infection that's not COVID. Because COVID is camping out in your body, setting up a military base in your liver and in your heart, right? And so your immune system is constantly battling COVID to the point where the front door is wide open for RSV or for some other virus to go in and fuck your shit up. So the idea that it's not COVID because it is some other virus and that COVID magically has nothing to do with it anymore, even though COVID has destroyed everyone's immune systems. Again, the way the media works is they will ask as many doctors or as many experts as they can until they get the quote that goes along with their narrative. So they just asked a bunch of people until they got someone that said COVID is not the concern. Think about that. Really, think about that. That's how the media works, okay? So obviously, a virus that destroys your immune system is playing a part in people getting other respiratory illnesses. Duh. But they hide that fact from you. Where is it hidden? In medical journals, which people don't read because they're fucking stupid. In scientific reports, which people don't read because they're fucking stupid. And all of these other things, right? That's where the information is hidden. And people are so fucking dumb that they don't, read stuff like this and go, COVID decreased the week after the second busiest travel season internationally. Well, Christmas is probably the biggest internationally, but domestically in America, it's probably second to Thanksgiving, I think. But internationally, Christmas is definitely the biggest travel season. And so people are flying all around the world, carrying viruses all around the world, and they're decreasing. Like at what point do motherfuckers, read this shit and go, wait a second, that's fucking weird. Oh, but again, let's read more in this article. No rest for doctors. The president of CIMIU has pointed out that many doctors in Italy's public health system have not been able to rest over Christmas and New Year. Holidays are a luxury, he said, citing the Piedmontese capital as an example. In Turin, for example, we didn't count on holidays over the Christmas period. The vast majority of doctors worked without interruption throughout the period. Now imagine this. You are someone who hasn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 3 weeks. You think that's going to affect your ability to do your job? Think about this. You haven't had a good night's sleep or a day off in 3 weeks. Don't you think the quality of your performance is going to decrease a little bit? Shouldn't we be concerned about the idea that doctors can't take a fucking day off? Isn't that something we should be doing something about? But no, because the germ theory of disease, not real. Gravity is not real. The fucking earth revolves around the sun. Not real. The sun revolves around the earth, and the earth is a disc. That's real in 2024. And so experts have urged Italians to get vaccinated as the peak of influenza expected next week when schools reopen after the holidays has not yet been reached. This idea that humans are so addicted to these fucking mind-numbing traditions. Schools gotta open. We're in the 5th fucking year of a global, extremely deadly and disabling mass fucking slaughter of people through global capitalist hegemony, getting people infected over and over and over again with a virus, an airborne virus. And no one is like, maybe we should call school off? Or have mask mandates in school? Or do online school? And people wonder why I'm a doomer. People go why are you so negative all the time, man? Goal number 1 for me right now is to survive this era. That's my primary concern, is my survival. My secondary concern is helping as many people as I possibly can survive this era, the age of pestilence that we find ourselves in. Because not everyone is going to survive this era. Think of all the people that you have lost over the last 4 years. Think of all the quality of life, of your life. If you've been infected with COVID, God forbid, multiple times, think about the quality of life decrease that you've had over the last 4 years and counting, right? My primary goal right now is survival. I am in survival mode. That's it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is we are living through a global catastrophe. And everyone in charge is fucking stupid, and the masses are fucking stupid, and really, it's just a war of attrition. We just have to wait until all the fucking idiots die off. That's literally the only light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't like that scenario. I don't want dummies to die just because they're fucking dumb. right? Now, again, I don't care if they die because of their own stupid fucking decisions, but I don't want them to die. I would prefer we all get our shit together and everyone lives happily ever after. But let's be honest, that's not happening here. So the only light at the end of the tunnel is like some magical sterilizing vaccine that actually prevents long COVID. mRNA vaccines, even Novavax, does not prevent long COVID. It reduces the likelihood of extreme symptoms, but it doesn't prevent it outright. So we would need a sterilizing vaccine. When is that going to happen? I don't see anyone even working toward that solution. At least the people that have like government funding or that have like the resources capable of doing so. And if they did make a sterilizing vaccine, would they give it to people or would they hoard it for their rich friends? So ultimately, I don't know what's going to happen in 2024 or onward, but my goal is survival. Survival. I don't give a shit about the Instagram fucking, protest pose. Hey guys, I'm at the anti-genocide in Gaza protest. Woo! And they take a bunch of maskless selfies and talk about how cool they are. I'm not into that. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit. If you're going to a protest where everyone's wearing respirators of high quality, that's a different story. But like, I'm in survival mode. I'm not going to risk my life for anything. I'm sorry, okay? I'm just telling you what my opinion is. I want as many people as possible that I can possibly influence in any way to survive this pandemic. That's my goal. Survival for me and survival for you, people that watch my show. I've had so many people who have come to this show, even in the last 6 months, and have said like, oh, wow, like, I thought COVID was over. Then I got sick and, I watched your show and it was like everything you said was correct. And, now I'm wearing masks again. That's great. You shouldn't have took it off in the first place. But hey, again, that's great. That's wonderful. I want as many people as possible to survive this mass slaughter of innocent people at the behest of global capitalist hegemony. That is my goal. And I think that you should make that your goal. And again, just like they tell you in the airplane, you put your mask on first, and then you put the mask on your kid. Why? Because if you fucking try to put the mask on your kid, and then you're dead, that's not going to be a good situation, is it? Right? So, I don't know, man. We are fucked. It's not good. It's really, 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 really bad. So there was a study that came out on COVID's effects on the muscle structure and your skeletal structure, and how long COVID can linger in ways that prevent you from basically, again, reaching that energy level you had before COVID. Like when you could run a mile and that would be fine, or walk up a staircase and that would be fine. Now you can't. Why? Well, we're going to find out. I would just say I highly recommend reading studies like these. It's in Nature. Just look up muscle abnormalities worsen after post-exertional malaise and long COVID. That word always fucking gets me. It's hard to pronounce. And again, what that means is you get acute COVID, right, which is the phase, and then afterward, you just kind of feel like shit. You don't ever actually recover. And I want to read the highlight here for me, which is this section here. SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid presence in skeletal muscle. So again, like I've said before, when you get COVID, you get COVID. You have a permanent parasite in your body in the form of a virus. Think of it like the United States having military bases in Afghanistan, right? COVID hangs out in your circulatory system, in your vascular system. Is it Tory? My brain doesn't work. Think about this. COVID goes from organ to organ, and sometimes your immune system can't catch up. And when your immune system can't catch up or is being disabled or destroyed, then you're going to be less likely to cough and sneeze, right? But you're going to be more likely to just pass out from cardiac arrest because you walk down the stairs, okay? So I want to read this section here because this section is extremely important. To determine whether viral remnants play a role in the differential immune response in skeletal muscle in long COVID upon induction of post-exertional malaise. Again, that just means after the acute phase and you still feel fucked up. We stained all muscle sections for SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid protein. We reasoned that if viral persistence plays a role, then the SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid protein, which is specific to SARS-CoV-2 and not influenced by vaccinations. Now again, there's a lot of people that are saying, everyone dying, it's actually the vaccine, man. You ever see this? Vaxxed? What's more likely to kill you? The vaccine that prevents illness or a deadly virus that has been circulating the globe for 5 years unabashed? You fucking dumb? Are you dumb? The answer is yes. Should be at least present. While we did not observe any positive staining in samples obtained before the outbreak of SARS-CoV-2, we found SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid protein in almost all patients, and then this is the kicker, and healthy controls. Now, what do they mean by healthy? They don't feel fucked up. Now, we live in the United States where if you do feel like shit, you're often really, in some ways forced, in other ways motivated to not tell other people because then they can perceive you as weak. And sometimes this leads to internal denial where inside your own head, you go like, oh, you know, sure, I get a little tired going up the stairs. It's no big deal. I'll work out, in a couple months and I'll get back into shape or you come up with another excuse, right? And those are the healthy control groups. And they're finding out that the healthy control group still has long COVID in a different faction. It's hanging out in their body and it's causing damage. And it's just that they haven't really come to terms with that yet. Again, if you've ever known someone with cancer, right? Do you get cancer and then all of a sudden, right, you're like, oh man, I think I have cancer now. Yeah, like I feel like really, I got this like pain. It must be cancerous, right? Like, or is it more likely that you just like come up with some other excuse and then like all of a sudden you fucking cough up blood and pass the fuck out and then you wake up in a hospital bed, hey buddy, you got cancer, right? So again, that's the situation here. If you have gotten COVID one time, you are disabled. Your disability may not be as severe as others, right? Because that's where all kinds of factors like lifestyle, the food you eat, the amount of exercise you get, the air that you breathe in general, not just like with COVID virus, but if you're breathing smog all the time because you live in a big city that doesn't have air pollution restrictions, right? All this stuff, plus, of course, genetics, although genetics are way in the back seat. A lot of people love to overhype the genetic predisposition stuff, but that, in my opinion, is a little bunko science. Most of it is based on how you live your life. Let's be honest. Now, again, genetics play a role, obviously, but I think the proportion of the role that people think genetics play versus the proportion that they actually play is a little disjointed. But I just want to keep reading this. Despite a greater duration since the latest COVID infection in long COVID patients, the amount of SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid protein was not different between the groups. Before and after adjusting for time since the latest infection, participants with an infection more than 6 months prior to study enrollment showed no differences in the abundance of SARS-CoV-2 nucleocapsid protein, but we cannot exclude additional unknown asymptomatic infections. Some people, they just get infected and they don't know. Now think about this from the virus's perspective. When you kill people too quickly, you can't propagate because they're dead. They get quarantined and die. But if you can go inside of your host and not even be detected, you can do a lot more fucking damage. Because you're just going around fucking doing all kinds of haywire inside someone's body. They don't even know what's happening. Then, all of a sudden, they fucking drop dead from cardiac arrest at the age of 16 in gym class. I cannot stress this enough. If you have ever gotten COVID, even if you haven't, to your knowledge, gotten COVID, I highly recommend eating a fiber-rich diet. Why? Because a fiber-rich diet provides your body, especially your gut, with a healthy bacterial microbiome that can help your immune system fight off viruses such as COVID. Now, again, even if you do eat fiber a lot and you eat really healthy, you still don't want to get COVID, obviously. Duh. This is not a magic bullet here. We're talking about harm reduction. I don't believe in magic. I'm sorry, I just don't. Maybe that's a defect for me. I just don't believe in magic. My apologies, right? But if you have ever gotten COVID, you need to rest. There's a lot of people that are like, man, I'm just getting out of my COVID sickness and I'm hitting the gym, man. If you go to the gym like a week after you got COVID, again, natural selection is working wonders right now, right? You really need to take care of yourself during this pandemic. Now, this doesn't mean you can't ever eat unhealthy food. You can't ever drink alcohol. But you need to really monitor the stuff that you're doing to yourself. Because, I don't know if you can hear this, but this dog. Max, what are you doing? What are you doing, Max? Oh, shit. But you just need to take care of yourself. If you have parents, fuck. Or, if you have kids, if you are a parent, if you're feeding your kid McDonald's or frozen fucking meals, I'm sorry, that's child abuse. In the current era, it's child abuse. In the past era, it's probably child abuse too. But, giving kids fast food multiple times a month, in my opinion, is child abuse. I don't care how many jobs you're working. You shouldn't have had a kid if you can't raise them properly. That's my opinion. Cry about it. Cry about it, okay? Oh, I'm a parent, my life sucks. Maybe you shouldn't have had a fucking kid in the first place, okay? I'm sorry, I don't coddle parents on my show. I don't. I was kind of wishy-washy on this issue, just as a minor tangent. On the parent issue, I was kind of wishy-washy on it for a while as a way of not wanting to offend people. But honestly, at this point, again, parents are sending kids to school without masks on during an airborne pandemic where kids are dying in droves of cardiac arrest, something that really never has happened before. That's child abuse. Parents are giving kids candy all the time, fast food all the time. That's child abuse. I'm sorry, it just is. And if you disagree with me, you're just dumb. You're a dummy and you shouldn't have had a kid in the first place. That's just the fact of the matter. But again, I highly recommend reading this entire study. And just learning how science works and learning methodology and all that kind of stuff. Just Google this phrase. It's from nature.com. I get it. Today I'm going to cover this video in a second here. I'm just loading it up. I get it. This show is depressing. I know. I know. And I wish that it wasn't the case. But if I were to do a news show that's not depressing, I would be lying to you. And I refuse to be a liar. So, I'm sorry. So, I want to play this video from CNN. I'm going to play it on 1.5x speed, just to get through it. But we're talking about Donald Trump being eligible to appear on the ballot. Now, I feel really weird with this discourse because I've been talking about 14th Amendment Section 3 for years. For 3 years, I've been talking about this. Right? And now, 3 years later, everyone else is talking about it. I've gone through research. I've gone through looking at it. I've had these conversations for years. And then now, all of a sudden, people are catching up with it. So I feel like part of me is vindicated. But part of me is also just like, are you people fucking stupid? Like, we were talking, like, people that know things and that read have been talking about this for years, But I want to show you this video by CNN here, where they're interviewing some right-wing fucking moron about why Trump should not be removed from the ballot. Now, again, 14th Amendment Section 3 says if you give aid and comfort to someone engaging in an insurrection or engage in an insurrection, you are banned from office. Now, I will say this. Now, this may be controversial, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that I have legal standing when I say this. My opinion is Nancy Pelosi and the entire Democratic Party, including Joe Biden, including Chuck Schumer, all Democratic leadership, gave aid and comfort to those engaging in an insurrection for not enforcing 14th Amendment Section 3 immediately. House of Representative member Cori Bush brought forth a resolution to invoke 14th Amendment Section 3. Nancy Pelosi shot it down. You ask me what aid and comfort is. That is aid and comfort. So my opinion is most Democrats and all Republicans should have been immediately expelled from office on January 7th. That is my opinion. Now, again, that is a plain-faced reading of the Constitution. If you give aid or comfort, not expelling someone from Congress for doing something illegal and unconstitutional that mandates that they be expelled from Congress, isn't that giving them aid and comfort? If it's not giving them aid, it's at least making them more comfortable. They get to keep their job, right? Right? And it didn't have to be this way. But I want to do this video here because this is just a funny clip of right-wingers kind of like responding to this situation. So let's just watch this one.
We are awaiting two major appeals from Donald Trump's lawyers that could have major consequences for the 2024 election. Trump is fighting a pair of historic decisions that disqualify him from primary ballots in Colorado and Maine. They hinge on the 14th Amendment's so-called insurrectionist ban. It's a constitutional gray area that's being tested in unprecedented fashion right now, and that's why it seems these cases are destined for the Supreme Court. We want to discuss with Maine Republican Party Chair Joel Stetkes. Joel, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon with us. So the Maine Republican Party, we understand, has been working on an appeal. When are you anticipating you will file it, or are you coordinating with the Trump team on timing?
So what we have been doing since prior to the announcement by Secretary of State Bellows is working with multiple groups of lawyers on our options and what tools we have at our disposal.
So can you give us any details on what your immediate plans might be, or are you waiting for the Trump team to step in first?
No, we're working with the Trump team and other.
Can we talk about this Abraham Lincoln like fucking thing? Like, like come the fuck on, man. Abraham Lincoln literally was the guy in charge when the 14th Amendment was thought of. When the 14th Amendment was fucking drafted and ratified, Abraham Lincoln was the main man. This guy is like, he's not the grand, like, obviously, people in Congress were the ones who actually wrote the damn thing. But it's like, la la land.
Other attorneys as well, and putting together the plan at this point in time, and I'm sure we'll be making some sort of announcement fairly soon.
Sure, look forward to that. So Joel, earlier we spoke with one of the people who filed to challenge Trump's eligibility in Maine, Tom Saviello. He's a fellow Republican who voted for Donald Trump twice. He argued that this group that he's with, of people that challenge the eligibility, are going about doing this through Maine's laws, that this is a legal process. I want you to listen to more of what he said.
Maine has a law. We have to follow what our laws say on the books. And unless they want to, there's two ways you can do this. You can change the law, or you can change what's required by the state of Maine. When we complained, which we're allowed to do under our constitutional rights and under Maine state law, she had a hearing, which was very fair, of which, interestingly enough, they brought no witnesses in. They had very few pieces of information they came, and they objected to her participating after the hearing record was closed. I sometimes think they took us for granted.
He's, of course, talking about the Secretary of State's decision to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. What is your response?
Well, Boris, I think the simplest way we can put this really is, we've got an unelected bureaucrat who likes to pretend that she's a lawyer, and she's literally taking away the voters' choices in Maine. Here in Maine and across the country, regardless of, whether they like Donald Trump or not, Bellows is wrong on so many levels, and it's getting to the point of really being embarrassing.
But now, I just want to say, like, these arguments are fucking stupid. They're taking away choices. Did you know you have to be 35 to run for president? Isn't that taking away choices? To not allow 34-year-olds and under to run for president? Isn't that taking away choices? What about term limits? Isn't that taking away choices? But all of a sudden, we gotta fucking suck Donald Trump's little fucking cock all the time. And you're seeing some really fucked up freaks jumping in on this, like Cenk Uyghur's jumping in on this because he's a fucking moron. Cornel West is jumping in on this because he's a fucking dipshit cocksucker too, right? You're seeing all these like fake wannabe leftists like going in on this, like Trump should be allowed to run even though it's unconstitutional and anti-constitutional. And again, when you read the 14th Amendment Section 3, if you give aid and comfort to those who engage in an insurrection, you are also banned. I would say again, this is giving aid and comfort to those who are engaged in an insurrection. Cornel West should be banned from running for president under the 14th Amendment because he is giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists and trying to prevent the 14th Amendment from being invoked here. Right, so I now, again, I know that that's stretching the definition, and I know I'm stretching the definition, but I'm trying to move the Overton window here, so give me a goddamn break. But again, all of the arguments that these dumb shit for brains cocksucker motherfuckers have are just fucking stupid, illogical trash, dumpster fire nonsense, okay? It just is. Now, caveat. I think Donald Trump is the best nominee for Joe Biden to go up against. If Ron DeSantis went against Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden would lose 10 times out of 10. If Nikki Haley went against Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden would lose 10 times out of 10. I think Donald Trump is the only Republican candidate Joe Biden even has a small chance of beating. But at the same time, Donald Trump should also be banned from the ballot as well, right? So I have that little bit of cognitive dissonance when it comes to strategy, right? So I don't know, but it's also like, do Republicans want to lose? Like, again, like if they want to win, wouldn't they just like pretend to fight against this and then just let Trump get removed and then like let someone else step in and then win the presidency? Like, so again, this is very complex stuff here, but what's not complex is the fact that Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection and gave aid and comfort to insurrectionists and is therefore ineligible to run for office. He should not have even served the rest of his term. He should have been immediately expelled from office on January 6th. Maybe at the very latest, January 7th is the absolute latest that he should have been expelled from office, right? But we live in fuckville, so.
But if the state law, like the state constitution, makes it so that if someone has a complaint about a candidate, they take it up with the Secretary of State, who then is the arbiter, how could she be in the wrong for making a decision based on what was presented to her in that hearing?
Well, you know, her decision process.
Operative word, how. I want you to think about it. How?
Was just wrong. You know, she's there to support Maine's voting rights, and she's doing exactly the opposite. You know, we're going to fight this thing to the highest extent that we need to, and what she's doing is just flat out wrong.
Why would you say that? Do you object to?
So how is it wrong? It's wrong because it's wrong.
Donald Trump's participation on January 6th, do you think that Article 5 of the 14th Amendment, or rather Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, is doesn't include the presidency? Like, what's your main argument against her decision?
Well, this has so much more to do with the you know, the suppression of the vote as opposed to Donald Trump. You're
telling me Republicans are concerned about voter suppression?
Oppose this decision regardless of what Republican she decided that she was going to arbitrarily decide Maine voters aren't going to be allowed to vote.
Arbitrarily? Now, again, I would go as far as to say all the Republicans should be expelled from office and banned from the ballot because they all gave aid and comfort to Donald Trump's insurrection. They did. When you go up on stage on a debate or whatever the fuck and you say like, well, blah, 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 wasn't that bad, banned. Banned. In my opinion, the entire Republican Party should be declared a terrorist organization and expelled from all public life. That is my opinion. And it's also backed up by the Constitution. That's what the Constitution is there for. That is why we ratified the 14th fucking Amendment, because when the Civil War happened, why did it happen? Because we had fucking insurrectionists winning office. Winning, you know, back then senators were appointed and so forth. So, you know, they weren't really winning anything. But so we had insurrectionists in office drafting laws to destroy the country from within. So that's why we have the 14th fucking Amendment. That's why we have the motherfucking 14th Amendment. I have a lot of problems with the United States Constitution. The 13th Amendment, for example, banning slavery unless you committed a crime. But what about mental asylums? That's slavery. and they don't commit crimes. You can just get involuntarily held in psychiatric treatment. That's slavery. Where's the crime? Right? So the 13th Amendment's not really upheld. And then also, why is prison slavery acceptable? Right? Because then all of a sudden they just change what's a crime, what's not a crime. Boom. You just have a new slave industrial complex in the form of prisons. Right? So I have a lot of problems with the Constitution. I have a lot of problems with the Civil War era amendments. But 14.3 is the least problematic one. Honestly, it really is the least problematic one. If you are a fucking insurrectionist, guess what, buddy? You should not be in office. It really is that motherfucking simple. And again, when even asked for a counter argument, these guys are like, "It's wrong because it's wrong."
You're saying, Joel, you're saying that it's arbitrary, but what is it about her decision? What is it about her argument legally that you're opposed to?
We're just opposed to her taking away the rights of the voters to be able to choose the leader that they want to vote for or not.
But if there's a part of the Constitution that says that if someone is an insurrectionist, a state can intervene to remove them from a ballot, and she is designated...
Again, Constitution also says you need to be 35 to run for president. So by that token, if I went to Maine and wanted to sign up for president as a 27-year-old and I got fucking banned from running for president, would this guy back me up? Somehow I doubt it.
To make that decision according to Maine state constitution, then isn't it up to her?
Her reasoning behind her decision is completely wrong.
So what is the reasoning that you object to?
No matter how you ask the question, her decision is completely wrong. Joel,
but give us the details. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong?
So Boris, this is the thing, right? There are attorneys and judges, Democrats and Republicans across this country that have said that she's wrong. Not one time in my life have I ever agreed with Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, until now. Gavin?
Again, anyone who is giving aid and comfort to those who engage in an insurrection. If Gavin Newsom actually said Trump should be allowed on the ballot, I haven't looked into that. Then he should also be expelled from office. He should not be the governor of California because he is giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists. That's literally, that's what it says. If you give aid and comfort to an insurrectionist, you are banned and expelled from running for office and from office. So if Gavin Newsom said the 14th Amendment doesn't exist anymore, guess what? He should be immediately expelled from office. I don't give a fuck what your party affiliation is. If you are giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists, you should be expelled from office. That's what the fucking Constitution says. That's what I read in the Constitution. If you look up the Constitution, that's what you'll see. It doesn't say if someone of the same party that engaged in an insurrection. It doesn't say that. It doesn't have anything to do with parties. It doesn't matter what fucking party you're in. If you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists, guess what? Go fuck yourself.
Newsom also believes the people should have the right.
I'm just trying to get to the basis. I'm trying to get to the basis of your legal argument, and you're not giving me any details. You're just saying that it's flat out wrong. Why is it wrong from a legal standpoint? Like, is it that you think her interpretation of the amendment is wrong? Is it that you think that it doesn't apply to the presidency, that it's not a self-executing portion of that amendment?
Like, the thing about this one that really gets me is this bald guy, I don't know his name, is like giving him answers. Like, it's a multiple choice question. Like, it's like A, B, or C. He's giving them all the Republican NPC talking points. And then this guy is like drawing a fucking doodle on the picture of like a penis or some shit, like coming massive loads of cum on the test. Like, that's what this fucking guy is doing. It's a layup. It's a softball. And he's like, oh, it's wrong. It was wrong.
Is there any detail you can give us other than saying she's flat out wrong, Joel?
So one of the things that we've seen in the last week are very highly respected lawyers and judges, Democrats and Republicans alike, that have come out and given plenty of legal argument on why that she's wrong. You know, my job here is to protect the voters in the state of Maine, and what she is doing just shows absolute contempt for the everyday American.
So the legal argument as to why it's wrong is some random guy who I'm not even going to name names said it's wrong. So it's wrong because it's wrong.
Feel like we're not smart enough to think for themselves that she needs to pull somebody off of the ballot because we're not smart enough to know whether we should vote for that person or not. And that's
no, I was pulled off the ballot for not being 35. So is this guy going to fight for my right to run for president? Like, this is all so fucking dumb.
I don't think it's a question of intelligence. I think there's a legal argument to be made. It doesn't seem like you have articulated the exact legal argument and the flaw that you see in her decision. Nevertheless, Joel, we're grateful to have you and get your perspective. Thank you so much for being with us.
So, I mean, again, I saw this one making the rounds on Twitter. And again, I need you to really understand. We live in a world where there is no such thing as the English language. Right? This guy gets asked the question, why is it wrong? And he says it's wrong because someone said it was wrong. That's not a conversation. That's not a response. Like, you might as well get a fucking club and bash your phone. That would have literally been more logical and reasonable than saying it's wrong than it's wrong. That's not English. Those are not words. But so many fucking people are so fucking stupid that they'll think this guy nailed it. Yeah, it's wrong because it's wrong. Yeah, woo! Trump. La La Land. My friends, La La Land. We are living in fucking shit-assville. Speaking of which, police say there's been a shooting at a high school in Perry, Iowa. Extent of injuries unclear. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Like, if you send your kids to school during an airborne pandemic, I think that's child abuse. But if you send your kids to school during a fucking gun violence pandemic, that's also child abuse. And I'm not going to lie to y'all. You know, the same parents that would be like, I would do anything for my kids. Are you? Are you? What are you doing to stop gun violence? Nothing. Oh, you give them a little march? What is that doing? What's your march doing? What's your peaceful protest doing, where you don't disrupt anything whatsoever and just stand on the sidewalk with a sign? What's that doing? Nothing. It's doing nothing. No one actually gives a fuck about this issue, including you, including me. We all say we give a fuck about this issue. No one actually fucking gives a fuck. That's it. That's all. No one cares at all about gun violence. No one cares at all about COVID violence. No one gives a shit. So I'm not going to lie to you. Oh boy, another mass shooting at another school. Guess what? The details don't matter because no one gives a fuck anyway. So next story, okay? Jesus fucking Christ. I actually have no other stories. That's the end of it. And again, you know, I understand that my show is getting more intense than it has been historically, but like, so is the world. And if you want to live in La La Land where the world is not falling apart, I get it. Some people are like, I just want to escape. Well, if you're watching a politics show to escape, that's your first fucking mistake. You know, if you want to watch a fucking show that's a little sillier, on the sillier side, go watch the Left Past 10 show. That's a little bit on the sillier side, right? Go watch my video game fucking shit if you want to watch something that's not, like, intensely depressing. But you know what? I have no problem making this show like just a fucking, like, you know, bullet to the brain in the form of like fucking depression, intensity, and fear. Because again, if you are not afraid, you're a fucking idiot. If you are not afraid, natural selection is going to have fun with you, motherfucker. Like, if you get dumped in the middle of an ocean and you don't know how to swim, yeah, you should be fucking scared. And I'm sick and tired of pretending like fear is a weakness. Sometimes fear can be a weakness. But when we're living during a fucking plague, when we're living during multiple active genocides where World War III is on the brink, guess what? I think fear is pretty fucking logical. Fear exists in our fucking DNA for a reason. We have the emotional capacity to experience anxiety and fear for a fucking reason. And this is the fucking reason, okay? This is the goddamn reason. So that we can see threats to our health and safety and act accordingly to avoid them. That is why we have fear, okay? That is why we have fear. Now, does fear need to consume you? Like, what does that mean, to be consumed by fear? I would rather survive and be afraid of death than die at the age of like 25 or 26 or 27. Hey, I could die in the next 6 months. I would rather use my fear and anxiety about death to prevent death instead of to provoke death, right? So I know, and I understand. I get it. I know that this is sometimes it's a hard show to watch. I get a lot of complaints, but also, you know, I get a lot of compliments, and, you know, some people like hearing things that are actually real. Because a lot of shows online, they don't tell you things that are real. They're all in this like, what did this streamer say, man? Let's do a 30-minute breakdown of Tim Pool's bald head. Like, what is this garbage? This fucking shit garbage that people pass for political commentary these days? Jesus fucking Christ. So you know what? I'm trying to change the game here. Consider me somebody who's going off into La La Land of my own. But I'm trying to change the game here a little bit, because whatever passes for political commentary on the modern day internet is a joke. This shit is a joke. When you look at the most popular political streamers, they're all fucking jokes. They're all a bunch of fucking celebrity losers who don't give a shit about your health and safety, and all they care about is having hot takes and being correct on issues. And they don't actually care about, the truth. They just care about being correct. They care about being, not even that, they only care about being perceived as correct. And that's something that you can just manufacture consent for. Just like people have manufactured consent for kids getting cardiac arrest in fucking gym class because they got COVID 58 times. So you know what? Yeah, am I angry at the state of the world? Fuck yeah, I am. Fuck yeah, I'm angry at the state of the world. And if you're not, you're a fucking idiot. You're a sheep. You got blinders on if you're not angry at the state of the world. But you know what? I'm trying to be productive with my anger. I could sit here and fucking scrape tally marks into my walls with my fingernails if I want to, But I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm doing the YouTube version of such a thing. And I'm producing a show that, I don't know, I think it's interesting. I think this is interesting. Is it entertaining? Maybe. I don't really care. Is it informative? I fucking hope so. I don't know. Like, fuck. I'm trying to provide a healthy, reasonable, insane dose of reality to whatever it is that your media diet consists of. That's my role that I have taken upon myself. So, there you go. Like I've said before, this year I will return to doing a more frequent program at some point later in the year. I have enjoyed doing a weekly show for about 5 or 6 months. That's been enjoyable for me. It's really helped my mental health. If you think I'm mentally unhealthy, you should have seen me 6 months ago. I was fucked 6 months ago. I was extraordinarily depressed 6 months ago. I was, I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I was eating a lot of junk food. I was like going down a fucking doom spiral. And then I decided, you know what? I need to fucking shake things up. I need to change what I've got going on. And I feel better than ever. So if you think that I am, unhealthy or like mentally insane or some shit, like that's fine. But I feel a lot better than I did 6 months ago, physically and mentally. And like being able to accurately look at the world and say, yeah, this is some fucked up shit. That's a skill as far as I'm concerned, right? Like that's a skill. When you look at the world and say, everything's fine, germs aren't real, the earth is flat, guess what? You're a fucking idiot. You're a doodle brain. You got fucking shit for balls in your head, okay? I don't know, man. But anyway, that's it. I think that's all I got.